don't you? So Bruce reckons make them cheap and reusable. That's what he tells me. Anyway, exactly. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you might be in the world. I've started a minute early because I started on a great comment which you didn't hear because nobody was.
Nobody listening. We should cut it from the recorded version as well.
From recorded again, this thing counts up a recorded version counter, and I have no idea where it keeps the recorded version, and it keeps telling me I'm running out of space. It's like, great, where? And when did I? Where did I record it? Where is all this?
Maybe magic? YouTube's full.
Oh,
there's always a thought. What a horrifying thought! No more cute cat videos. That'd be terrible.
YouTube's once again. Exclusive. You heard it here first. YouTube's full. The tube is no longer tube. It's a full cylinder. It's a used cylinder, a full.
And we can't get the lid back on. That's the most worrying part.
That's right. It's like, I wonder what letters underneath the lid. Do they still do that on Smarties? I wonder. They still have a tube with a letter.
Showing your age, Gary. Showing your age.
Yeah, I'm definitely showing my age. Well, so. More nonsense about FPV goggles this week, I see.
Not really.
Losing the will to live about all this nonsense with FPV stuff. But I was interested in the 1 gram, I think you said, was it 7 gram FPV system that you've got now, Ian?
Yeah, HD0 have got a digital system down to 7.5 there and thereabouts. I think my proper video on it goes live Thursday. I'm battling some problems, actually, not with the system, with an aircraft to strap it to. I'm fighting whoops and things left, right, and center. But
Foxeer have releasing a new indestructible tiny whoop, and it gives you the choice of HD0, DJI, or analog.
Yeah, the small market is definitely kicking off. But yes, 7.5 grams, 1.5 gram camera, 4.5 gram VTX. Weight wise, digital's right up there with analog now. You know,
what sort of range you expect?
200 milliwatt. It'll do 200 milliwatt. So whatever range you get from 200 milliwatt,
a few hundred meters, most cases.
In most cases, it will certainly. And HD0 is very, very comparable to analog on range for the most part. DJI
except when you run out of it.
Except when you run out of it, and then it's the same. But yeah, on a VTX of this size, if you're using a small antenna, it's not the VTX that's the compromise, it's the antenna.
It's the antenna. But,
yeah. Digital is down to 7.5 grams, which is, squarely in analog territory. Yes, it's still more expensive. If we look at if you were to go for a very small analog camera and a small VTX, probably about $50-$60, Bruce, if I'm right. Something like that.
If you get that all in one, they're down to like $25.
$25, yeah. So the cost is there, but if you want digital, there are options. And we've seen this week FR Sky have integrated HD0 into the Tandem.
Excuse me while I have a big yawn.
20 HD. Although the interesting thing is that they're not calling it HD0. It's basically white labeled. Nowhere in their marketing does it say it. And it's a weird one because FR Sky could shout this from the rooftops. It would be very good to shout this and say, hey, instead of going out and developing our own system, like everyone else is doing, we've picked someone who we feel works well and we've chose this.
You don't understand the FR Sky model. It's not about being compatible. It's not about using other people's technology. It's about saying, we are Free Sky. We are the best. You should stay only with us and don't use anything else because we don't.
No. And that's the interesting thing. And they've quietly said, but it'll work with HD0 VTXs. So
it's HD0 then.
So it's HD0. Yeah, it basically is. And it's good because it will bring... Those radios have gone down well with certain markets. Ben at 3DXR, I was talking to him a couple of weeks ago and he was saying to me he's switched to that radio for a lot of his custom build aircraft, the Tandem X18 and 20. It's better than a Taranis. It's a nicer radio than a Taranis, but it's not as expensive as a Jetty and stuff like that. The OS, as much as it isn't open source, it's very nice and easy to use, which his clients like. It's not all about open source. For the FPV community and the general drone community, we look at it and go, it's another closed source operating system. It's another this or that. But it does serve some markets. It's not for FPV, this. maybe fixed wing pilots could be interested, but not that many. I think it'll sell okay, but it's good to see. It's good to see. There really hasn't been too much news on the walk snail stuff. I put a video out on it this week, just to, an unopinion based video, because everything I've done has been very much, here's what's happening, and now I'm going to tell you why I think it's a load of crap, or I think this is a load of nonsense, or they're lying to us, or what it is. But I wanted to put something out which was completely factual, and that's what I did this week. Just a piece which is, here's what they've told us. Completely and actually, I've done it for a reason as well. And Bruce, I don't know if Bruce watched it, but if you notice, Bruce, I put all the screenshots of what they've said in there. And that's been done for a very good reason, because they have made some clear statements. And I want to be able to refer back to that.
That's exactly what I do on SES News. There'll be
it's a product still in development, so some things may change, Ian.
Something's like changed, like the chipset, the whole software stack, and everything else.
They might go back to scratch. You never know.
But yeah, and look, there is call for a discussion on why is Red Cat the parent company of Fat. Oh, sorry, let me rephrase this. Why is Fat Shark, who are owned by Red Cat, asking users for upwards of $600 in advance via their dealer network for a product that isn't available yet? And we're not talking
about crowdfunding.
A small company here. We're not talking about a company that, if this was Orca, I get it. Orca are still fairly small in their size. So if this was Orca, even if this was HD0, I would get it. But we know Red Cat have had bags and bags and bags of money. So why are they asking users for this up front? Something smells very off about that whole element. And I just want to add, someone added an interesting comment to my video, which was, remember the last earning call, Red Cat said their sales were down. Now, I'm wondering if they don't think they're going to hit this out the door by the next earnings call, and this is a way of making the numbers looking better than they really are, which would be somewhat underhanded. Because if you've taken all of that pre-order money up front, you've got to declare it.
Well, I
but it balances out, doesn't it?
It does balance out.
It's a liability as well, because they've got the option to refund it. So it wouldn't change the bottom line of the company.
It wouldn't, but it would look different from walking into a second quarter with technically abominable sales, because once you announce, they said something in their last earnings call, which was no one's buying goggles because they're waiting for our next product. Well, that was complete nonsense.
Someone else
announced the next product at that point.
So someone said, we better have a next product. I don't know, do some fancy graphics.
And quick, render.
Funny enough, they announced something. Now, if they were to walk into a second quarter, I do wonder how it would look. But I don't wish them anything. But this smells very bad. A company of their size stripping users of between $700 and $800 in advance. And the bit I still don't understand, and no one's answered the question, is what happens to that money? So I give it to Get FPV. I give it to those dealers. Are those dealers handing that over to Red Cat Fat Shark up front, or are they holding on to that money? And then what happens if I want that back? And
it's interesting that whole thing. If I don't know why they didn't just say we're going to crowdfund this one. Because I'm pretty sure the community get right behind a crowdfunded digital FPV system that was as good as DJI. I think they'd have no trouble in raising the millions that they needed to get something going. But to say it's pre-orders, that kind of, what if one of the dealers goes bust? Who then holds the can, for refunding? And also, if you purchase the product from outside the USA for $600 or pre-order for $600, and then the US dollar takes a dive, do you get your money back in the currency you paid it in, and do they make up the difference? Or there's so many problems when you pre-order stuff and currencies go up and down, and it becomes a nightmare. I wouldn't even think about it.
No, I haven't. I haven't done that. I would be more than happy with $100. I think if they'd have just said, look, we want a serious amount of
$100
money
now.
up front to gauge serious interest, because look, we're going to production on this and we need to understand the numbers. If they'd have been open and honest and said, you got to give us $100, $150, I think that would have been more than fair. But there's still something that smells a little bit off on this whole the back end element of this release, ignoring the product because there's a lot that smells weird, but we have their answers on that and we will hold them to account based on what they've told us because we have screenshots and it's on video.
Yeah.
But the money aspect has been dodged big style.
Yeah, the whole thing. I think I would slap a video up and put confidential in the title or whatever.
That'd be a great idea
for the teal thing they did. That's also.
It was such a produced video. You got Kappa there making the video look all slick and thing. And also, what were they demonstrating? They had like 6 drones flying at one time. Wow, what a breakthrough!
Well, it's never been seen before. Amazing technology. Yeah. We've seen the future.
Did they get the necessary waivers? Because there was one guy flying 6 drones. They admitted that one guy flying multiple drones. That's illegal under the current regulations. Did they have the waiver in place?
Funny you should mention that. I don't know if Jonathan's on the sidelines. I don't know if he's even going to join us. I've sent him a note. Oh, hang on, Louis here.
Maybe that's why it was confidential.
Louis. Yeah, maybe. How's it, Louis? Yeah, that video was a complete nonsense, and the idea that it was better 6 drones flying together was better than 1,000 drones because it was single operator or whatever. Well, I can't even remember what was on it.
But isn't that what the drone displays do? They have one guy and it's all pre-programmed.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. Look, we're 1/10 as good as Intel. How good are we? And the CEO was there. The CEO of Red Cat Holdings was there. And the CEO of Teal was there. And all these people go out in the desert to watch some guys fly drones. And then it's a confidential thing we can't tell anybody about. So we're accidentally going to produce this video, upload it to YouTube, and make it public. Oh, what have we done?
That's very not slick. I'm very, very surprised, Chad, if you do ever watch this one. Very surprised at that video. It didn't instill confidence at all.
It should have been titled, "We flew 6 drones. You won't believe what happened next."
You won't. Exactly.
But don't look. Don't look.
Yeah, don't look. Yeah. It didn't instill confidence, and as to where Ian thinks the money's going, I wonder if it's going there to flying 6 drones in the desert, etc., etc., etc.
I think they did stop for food, so now we know where it went.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Louis, you've been flying the entire DJI range last week, I hear, including the M30.
Yeah, and a surprise, we got firmware updates on almost all the drones. So initially, the results on the M30 were not astounding, but after the update, yeah, that is a completely different machine, and it can become a reference quite easily. Not cheap, not cheap. Still has the problem of the batteries that will require special permission from the airlines, which most will be hard to come by. But no, the drone is quite capable, and that remote, oh God, would put Bruce completely bananas because it has so many buttons, so many. Oh God, that's that thing that has like an ATM machine that you get the instructions of what the side buttons do.
Yeah.
On the screen. So once one of the buttons does one thing, and if you are doing another thing, you have to press the same button again, but because it does another thing. Oh God, yeah, but it works.
So is that a UX nightmare, user experience nightmare, or is it something you're going to learn quite quickly if you fly it lots?
No, come on, that thing flies like all DJIs, sticks and up. Then, if you want to do certain things with the cameras, we were using the one that has the triple camera, so the thermal, the zoom, and the wide. It takes 3 pictures at a time. That's usual, but yeah, quite capable and reasonable. But yeah. It lost to his bigger brother because we were also playing around with the P1 camera. Yeah, no way to compete with that camera and the M300, but completely different ball game.
What do you think of the P1, Louis? From the sense of that's not a FLIR sensor, is it?
No, the P1 is a 35 mil sensor. It's a full frame.
Yeah, but I mean the thermal element on. Is it the P1's got the thermal element?
No.
Sorry, you're talking about the big. Oh, yeah. You're talking about the other camera.
Yeah.
Which is the one with the non-FLIR thermal? Because I'm seeing a lot of good reports on that as well, and it's interesting that FLIR have always been the go-to. Yet they certainly have caught up now.
No, but come on, it was expected. It was almost something that before you take off, you just look at the specs of the cameras and say, okay, the P1, it's not a competition. Before that, I had seen some images done for orthophotogrammetry, and that thing flying at 120 meters with an appropriate lens pointing down, it is really impressive, the level of detail that matches. The problem is you need a good lens and the camera is good. The other one, that crazy zoom feature, it's really crazy. You cannot look at the monitor with that camera. You cannot look at the monitor with that camera of the M30 fully zoomed because it's impossible. You have to do not breathe on the direction of the remote, otherwise you'll get several meters of the deviation. But no, the M30 really, I believe that they will sell them like hotcakes, even at the price they're asking for them.
I've heard good things about the M30. I may be having access to one for a day, but it is an astonishing. It's just a shame that you can go the Inspire route, Louis, and go 2 packs to solve that problem, because that would have just made it perfect. If they'd have just split the batteries in half, it would have made it perfect.
But don't worry, we had two Inspire 2s, one with the X5S and the other with the X7 camera, and no competition for the other two.
No.
Absolutely no competition. They were completely off the grid at the first round.
The X7 isn't a great camera. It is and it isn't. It's a cine camera. It's a video camera. It's not a good still. DJI tried to start selling it.
And the 5S too. And the 5S too.
Yeah. They're video cameras more than stills, aren't they?
Yeah.
And the X7 was completely marketed towards being a cine video camera.
Yeah.
And as it wasn't selling well, they suddenly started going, oh, you can use this with the M300 and the M210. And it's like,
we have the Inspire 2s running the X7 and the X5S. So we have, from the Air 2S to the, I even had this one.
And what was the Inspire 3 like?
The Inspire 3, like this.
Yeah.
Exactly
like this. Okay. Yeah.
He's got the little frog, look. He's got the frog.
Yeah.
I see that.
This was quite a surprise. Quite a surprise. It's honest. It's an honest drone on what it does. I can say you that.
You don't say that in this industry. You don't say that. You can't say that.
We always
it's the exception to the rule.
When it comes to their small consumer line of product, they always do all right. They've done a huge update for the Mavic 3 today. A massive update for the Mavic 3.
I saw that. And last week, the Mavic 3, we had it there, and it went out on the first round. The imagery was not
great, is it? It's not great, you know. Whichever way you look at it, I remember when I did my review, I came back here and put the footage up and just went, okay, I don't get what I'm getting here. It's the Mavic 2 Pro delivers exactly the same quality of footage.
So is it better now after this massive update?
Well, it's a lot changed. A lot changed.
Yeah.
It's never the difference between 4/3 and 1 inch is so minimal. You're not going to get.
That's what you told her. Yes.
Yeah.
And as usual, one that behaved way beyond expectations was the Air 2S. Yeah. If they would go variable aperture on that camera, oh my God, it would be. But yeah, end of the day, Phantom 4 Pro V2 with that crazy, that stupid camera is just, God.
They've never beaten it. It's that lens, that thing. It's such a good bit of kit. It is a shame that the A2S was limited, you know, because the Mavic 2 Pro is basically the same, but it has a variable aperture, but it's an older sensor. If they had just brought all of that over to the A2S with the variable aperture and that whole situation, they probably didn't do it on purpose. I'm guessing, because I don't know where the A2 line sits now, the A line sits now. Because if you look at that drone there, Louis, you got the Mini 3. It really has now eaten into the A line once again. So they're going to have to push the A forward. So perhaps the A3 will be variable aperture on what you had before. That sort of makes some sense, doesn't it?
And something, let me pick it up.
He's getting the secret stuff out now because he's turned the camera off. Look.
No.
Yeah, he's just moved the Inspire 3 out the way, and
no, come on. This was quite a surprise. Everybody said, "Oh, it's only 700 nits. It doesn't have HDMI out. It doesn't this. It doesn't that." It has one thing: you are a full day with it on, working with the drone all day, and you don't have to charge it.
Your dogs.
Yeah. My only complaint, and as usual, come on, I have to wear reading glasses to read the fine letterings of the DJI Pro app. Oh.
I noticed that on the Mavic 3. I think I complained of that in the review, which was the lettering on the Go app on those smart remotes along the top is minuscule, isn't it? Like the battery.
Oh, no, and the worst thing is that is a common problem. The overlays that they put on the bottom of the screen with some choice of colors of the overlays that you look at it and what are you saying? You are saying something, but I don't know what it is. I hope it's not something bad. But no, this was a surprise, really a surprise. I'm very, very impressed with the Mini 3, and I believe they are pulling one like they did a couple of years ago to 3D Robotics. Now they're pulling one to Hotel with the Nano Plus. Yeah. And from now on, I believe everyone that wants to compete with DJI will have to include this.
We'll have to include one of them. Yeah, they've set the bar now, haven't they? Because if you look at the cost of that remote, when I did the pricing, I worked out that remote was
$150 or $180,
something like that. And you take it out of the pack price, and it's I think it puts Autel in a very difficult place. I like the Nano Plus, but it had its issues. It was a nice drone. It did really well. but it wasn't perfect. But what DJI have now delivered is something very similar, but they've bundled in that remote. And the reality is you can go fly in, not have to connect your phone. It's like me, I've got a nice phone, but I have to take it out the case to use it in the remotes, because the DJI remotes don't fit with the case, and then it's a risk of dropping it and all of these problems.
I use a tablet for all these crazy things. And oh God, it's always a pain in the backside having to, where is the adapter for the RCN1 controller, or where is the adapter for the controller for the PlayStation?
I even think Bruce would like the Mini 3, and he hates camera drones.
But hey, can you get the Autel upgraded to geofencing? Then I could just use the Autel.
Yeah.
Geofencing, that's a death. I'm a big boy. I wear big boy pants. I can decide where to fly.
Yeah, I said this a couple of days ago to someone that belongs to a drone company, and I told them, Autel is a fantastic hardware with a not so well executed software stack. And DJI, it is middle of the road hardware and competitive. It has a good enough software stack. Even with the geofencing, come on. Here at home, if I switch it on, it says, "Oh, you're in a limited area. Can you really fly here?" Yes, I can. Not the same with the Autel.
Here's something interesting, Gary. Now, while we were talking about this and we were talking about the updates earlier, something I noticed in these new DJI updates today is that they have added support for the Japanese remote ID system. Now, this is the first time I've seen any mention of these kind of things in any of DJI's release notes. Do we know what the Japanese remote ID system actually is? Because they've now officially added support.
I can ask Randy McKay. He's our autopilot man of Copter in Japan.
And interestingly, this would be
Wi-Fi one.
As I understand it, this would be the first ever implementation on a DJI drone of any official mandated remote ID standard. So this could be the start of the propagation of remote ID happening, because that's quite a big thing in itself. That.
Yeah. As long as you're willing to take a missile on your head when you land.
Let's have a look. Japanese RIDS. Let's just see exactly what the Japanese RIDS standard is. Actually, I shouldn't have done that. It's Beetles. How to get rid of Japanese Beetles? That's not the same, is it?
That not a patch on the real Beetles.
Yeah, not many of them left.
They're smaller and more efficient, but they just don't sound as good.
Okay, so I'm reading an article from APS Alpine. They're producing a remote ID device for drones for Japan.
It must be Wi-Fi. It must be.
Specification as per prescribed by Japanese
yes.
Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism.
The interesting thing is, though, that most sub 250s don't need
STM.
remote ID, do they? Only Japan has it 200 gram.
ASTM
F341119.
Oh, by the way,
yes, I'll put it here. I'll put it in the comments.
So that would that be the same as what everyone else is basically doing?
It'll be the same as what America's doing, but no one else is rushing to enable that ASTM. It's Wi-Fi, either Bluetooth 5 long LE or Wi-Fi Neighbor Awareness Network. I don't know what that is, or Wi-Fi Beacon. That's the communication standards.
But do you need remote ID on sub 250s?
Yeah.
In Japan, it's sub 200, but in the rest of the world, it's sub 250, isn't it? So why would you have a remote ID on a car?
I think remote IDs on everything.
Yeah, and you're raising an excellent question, Bruce, because this drone can be added with a battery that allows about 25% more flight time, but surpasses the 250 grams, which makes it an officially over 250 grams, and as the regulations state that is MTAL for the classification of the drone, this drone in certain more rigid places won't be a 250-gram drone, because it has an original accessory that makes it above 250 grams. Although
That's
that's the same with the Mini 2, though, because with the prop guards, it's 250 something grams.
But they're not selling those accessories in certain regions. Like, you can't even buy the big battery in Europe.
But you can buy the batteries. That's the
yes.
You can. Oh, okay. I go to DJI store. It's not for sale here. Yeah, I know. But you can buy them anyway. And the MTAL of the equipment is more than 250 grams. So I don't know. It's going to depend a lot of interpretation of the regulations by each aviation authority. So
and regulations that are open to interpretation are bad regulations.
Oh, come on, Bruce. You know better than that.
Regulations should be binary. Yes, no, you broke the rule, you didn't break the rule. It shouldn't be interpretations. It shouldn't be shades of grey. It should be you're either legal or you're not.
No, come on. They are playing the game of no, the thing that makes the drone above 250 grams is not available in your country. So it is a sub 250 grams. But if the regulators want to say, no, you can buy them, that does not mean it has to be in our country.
But that's like saying, oh, someone in America is making an attachment to put a Glock on your Mavic 2.
Yes.
Therefore, the Mavic 2 is illegal everywhere because it could be an armed drone, and we don't allow armed drones.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be subject to interpretation, at least from one country. I know, not in Europe. I know that this won't pass the bar of the sub 250 grams. And it is considered above 250 grams. So, yeah, that's the current situation. I don't know.
This unit, I'm looking. I'm putting on SES News now that press release that you found as well, Ian. That's 33 grams. This unit. That is quite a chunk of unit on your talking about this sub 250, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if you had to put a separate thing on. If you had to put a separate thing on, that would.
But there's no reason any of this needs to be that size. And if we just look at what we spoke about earlier, HD0 are making a Whoop VTX with 200 milliwatts at 4.5 grams.
Yeah, but I think most of the weight is in the stickers that say it's approved.
It's approved. This should. Let's be realistic, Bruce. Half that, I reckon it could easily be half. This needs what? An STM32. And
it doesn't need anything.
ESP32 would do it.
ESP32 is all it needs.
Yeah, and maybe
just an ESP and a GPS. Got to have a GPS as well.
Well, an ESP.
Yeah, that was an independent one, wouldn't it?
Milliwatt. I think the ESP32 does 17 milliwatt or 12 milliwatt without amplification. That's straight out of the device. Yeah.
Elevated position. And you've only got to have a few hundred meters range. It's not a long range system. That should be heaps. And if it doesn't work, then the police need to upgrade their phones.
Because on the Express LRS units without an additional amplifier on the telemetry back, I'm sure it's 12 milliwatts or something like that. It might be 17, but I think it's 12 or 17. So it'll be the same thing. It's in fact, there is no reason we could not reflash a ESP32 based Express LRS receiver to produce remote ID.
And we have GPS still, though. Still got to have the GPS.
You're going to have GPS, but it's got a UART, Bruce, where you could UART it in.
Oh, yeah. Just one of those cheap Banggood little lightweight things.
This Japanese one that I'll hit publish now, but it's Bluetooth 5. What's got Bluetooth 5 in it? And can you hear Bluetooth 5 on your normal phone?
Normally, the different numbers of Bluetooth is range more than anything, if I recall.
Okay. Well. 3 holes in the ground full of water. What a Interesting.
Yeah,
Well
higher
done for
speed.
spotting that.
Better range, higher speed. That's what Bluetooth 5 brings.
Yeah.
You know.
And
But
this
how
is-
interesting that. But DJI will be doing the over Wi-Fi bit, won't it? The first
They will.
long
Yes,
range.
their drones
That'll
don't
be
have
over
Bluetooth.
Wi-Fi. Yeah.
Although Bluetooth is just Wi-Fi, it's all 2.4
Sure.
gigs. It's the same network. It's just a protocol at the end of the day. But yeah, but the interesting thing is, as I recall, this is the first time they have officially supported a remote ID standard.
I
well,
want to know how they do the connectivity. It must be operating as a Wi-Fi
Ian.
access point, and so you'll have to log in.
hey Ian, don't you consider Aeroscope a standard? It's DJI standards. Come on.
We all need more standards.
I wonder if we look at Wiggle.
I still need to do a video on that as well.
I wonder if any of them have popped up on the interwebs in Japan yet, any of these devices. Because we should be able to see them on Wiggle, shouldn't we?
And the mini remote has Bluetooth, just to let you know. The DJI Mini has Bluetooth.
Something that wasn't mentioned in the Mavic 3 release notes was any improvement to GPS performance.
Oh,
Which
come
will please
on.
people.
Why do you want GPS performance? You have,
Well, some people are having to wait 10 minutes before they can take off, Louis. So
come on, that's good for you to make sure that you do the pre-flight checkup.
Yeah, it's good to exactly. It's good to relax and just.
Although they have added something, they have added this word in increased home point refresh rate. That's interesting.
That's for
they had it set to every 10 minutes.
That's for the follow me. Come on.
It could be. I'm looking at WiggleNet to see if I can find it in Japan, because that would be any of these RID devices. Because that, of course, it struck me the other day, is going to be let me just let's just show you Wiggle. If you does everyone know? Maybe everyone knows Wiggle. I don't know.
It's an Australian group that appeals to children.
Yes, it could be. So you can rush in and you can look at Wi-Fi networks that people have stumbled across as they're driving around. But it also means there's our good friend at // demonstrated, or a chum of his, you can find things like various robots that people are using that have got Wi-Fi. So as soon as remote ID comes in, all the stumblers around the world that use this sort of system are going to be inadvertently finding all these RID devices. Let's go down to this place here. This is a place where pirates live. Let's see if anyone's driven around here. Where's your place? Oh, there's your place. So let's have a look at Tokara, for instance. There's the airfield. Oh, no one's driven to the airfield, Bruce. That's no good. But yeah, people are gonna apply. I pop up on this now. I show this to children at school because in their local very posh housing estate, people have a habit of naming their Wi-Fi the Smith family or the whatever. You know, they put a proper value to it. I show them how easy it is to find them. But I'm going to keep looking. I'm not going to do it live and do it now because I haven't got enough bandwidth in my head to do that. But I suspect a lot of these RID devices are going to start appearing on that without us setting up our network of receivers that we already decided to set up earlier, and we've missing the boat.
But it's not real time, is it? It's only logged historical data. Yeah,
it is. It is logged historical data. No, that's very true. That is very true. But you know, if there's enough of it there, and it'll be a device in my pocket that would work for finding.
We just added to Flight Radar 24 or GliderNet.
Yeah. That's the beginning of the right. Ernest has got a huge. Let's look at Ernest's huge question here of being rude. I went to online thermal and navigator so I can get the search and rescue. What type of? And then the message quits. That must be the end of what's available.
Go for the blue ones.
Go for the that probably is, it's going to end up being a thing, isn't it? I don't know. Where would we go and learn? Louis would be the bloke. Where would you go and learn about thermal for search and rescue, Louis?
Just go to Raptor Maps, and although they sell a product, they have very good tutorials about thermal.
Who's that again?
Raptor Maps.
Raptor Maps. All right, there you are, Ernest.
They have
Raptor Maps.
a very good thermal application. Works with lots of drones, but what they are not shy of sharing knowledge about thermal, and I really think they are. When I began reading about thermal, what to do with thermal, about 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Some of the articles they have are quite a good knowledge base for someone that's starting, and from then on, world and Google is your beach. So follow them.
Where did you find all the good information about the release? I'm looking at the DJI site now.
Oh, the release notes you have. Come on, you have to read release notes.
I'm just looking. I'm looking, but I'll better get into reading them. Release notes. There they are. Okay, right, here they come.
Mavic 3 and then under download.
Yeah. I'm looking at them now. Hyperlapse, whatever. All right, I'll look at that when we've finished. Yeah. Wow, what a thing. What? So that's I've definitely got to put a post up, because, as you say, that is possibly the first. I think it is the first use of RID.
I didn't have the opportunity to try the Mavic 3 with the new firmware, because I had it last week, but with the corrected thing for the M30 and the updated version of the firmware of the Mini 3, I was impressed. I believe they must have put a different team looking after the firmwares of the drones, because let me tell you, when I got the Mini 3, the first thing he had to do, I need to do a firmware update. And I went, come on, have fun. So I didn't even try with the firmware it came out. And I was quite surprised, because I had read a few things. It goes down when it goes forward, and it goes down. Now it goes down when it goes back. I haven't seen anything like that. The anti-collision works. The avoidance, so anti-collision, it stops. The avoidance, it tries to fly above or left or right. It works. The camera settings are very honest. But yeah, that's so.
So what are Skydio claiming now? What is their unique selling point, apart from being blue?
On the
Skydio, what's their unique selling? Everyone else has got obstacle avoidance and collision avoidance and all that sort of stuff. So what have Skydio done to keep their lead?
Full autonomous. That's different. And it has the six sides anti-collision. This is only front and back, although it has a bigger range, angular range. It works as long as you don't try to go sideways. There are dead angles on the anti-collision. Yes, there are.
That's interesting, because one of the major collision modes I've seen is when people are doing an orbit and they crash into a tree going sideways.
Yeah.
Louis, can you spell out what it was you mentioned, please?
It's Raptor, R-A-P-T-O-R.
Raptor, as in the birds of prey.
Raptor, was it Raptor Maps.
Raptor Maps. All right, let's put that in.
That's the first name that came, and then if you want to go and have more technical detail, go to to the FLIR site. It also has lots of information about long wave, infrared, short wave, infrared, medium wave, infrared, all the difference where you can use one, where you should use the other. Lots of good information also at FLIR. So go past the marketing blurbs and go to the technical information. Good information, both on Raptor, more specific to the business of using drones to do thermal, and on FLIR just thermal as general.
Well, there we are. Mitchell's wearing a T-shirt. He's wearing the shirt. He's wearing the T-shirt they sent for Christmas a few years ago. So
here's a
there we
question.
are. Okay.
With RID being operative in Japan, are there any apps for receiving remote ID? Has anyone checked to see whether there's phone apps you can use? Compliance with STM34 or whatever it is? Wouldn't that be... Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we need to bang a fake one up quick.
Requires
sure
access to your photos and your bank details and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They must, I can't see any at the moment, but somebody must have made one.
But Bruce, coming back to the question of Skydio, I don't think they are too bothered with people, normal Joes and Louises and Bruces buying the drone. They got that big defense contract, so they should be okay. And it's a different kind of drone. It's a different type. Look, Skydio does not go for the anti-collision, goes for the autonomy. And what they say is you don't need a remote to fly the Skydio, and you don't. It's better, it's safer. Everything that we could say, we should always have a remote ready to override whatever the NVIDIA stack inside tries to do. But it really is a different kind of bird. They could make it better. Yes, they could. I don't know. Yeah, and it's about time they start doing a new one. And
just what I was going to say. They're behind the expected sort of hype timeline for the industry, aren't they? Probably by, I'd almost dare to say, getting on for a year behind. But we'll just say COVID, won't we? We'll just
look. This one, if you go to the DJI site, this stupid thing has a delivery date. If you try to order now, it is delivery in August or September. So they are. I'm sure they are not doing one or two a day.
So Louis, if someone was looking at buying something like this now, sub 250, would you recommend, given the price differential for the average user, not commercially, but just someone wanting to use a small sub 250 gram drone for doing their holiday snaps and things, Mini 2 or Mini 3? Mini 2. Yeah.
It depends. If I would have my grandmother use a drone, I would go Mini 3. But for normal person, even if he would understand the limitations of not having a system, a babysitter on the drone to avoid him crashing, if that person could understand that and understand that it is a dangerous vehicle that can bump into things and people, and he could lose the drone on the first minute that he takes off with it. I would go, if that person understands all of that and wants to really save money, Mini 2. Otherwise, Mini 3. It's more, let's say, it's more user-friendly. It's becoming a commodity with the Mini 3.
I've just noticed another thing. Drip. Of course. Why didn't they call it that DRIP before? Drone Remote Identification Protocol Requirements. Why hasn't it always been called DRIP? Anyway, sorry. That sort of thing excites me, as you know. What was the Healing Blue? That was a question from Mitchell. I believe they're made in America, aren't they, Ian?
It's made in America by a subdivision of Philip Rouse, so from Cube Pilot or Earling here.
I believe there was some complication over. I believe there was some complication over labeling it US because that rules moved around on that.
Yeah.
It was, but that may have now changed. Funny enough, I'm wearing a Q Pilot T-shirt. Look, my understanding was the base core device was still made in Taiwan, as all of the other stuff has been.
Yeah.
But it was manufactured in the USA and was compliant with that as well.
Yeah.
Yes, it is Union Robotics.
That's why you have it on the blue SUAS list, a few of them already. So it's already there.
But there was some complications on that when Taiwan then got shifted around, because Philip has also moved a lot of it into Korea as well in recent times, haven't they? Because of some of the political issues over there too. So yeah, it's kind of
no pun intended, but it is a lot of that's all up in the air, and it's actually it's kind of obscure, isn't it? What is a blue? What's NDAA? What's blue? What isn't blue? What's this? What's that? You can't technically you can't use any Apple devices if you follow the letter of the law with any of the as a ground control station. So it's a complete cluster. Now it really
it's a complicated mess because we've had a bit of stagnancy in that because Healing's 3+ years, 4+ years old now. If we've had 2 years of COVID, and it's a great device, and it's not just Healing. I mean, it's all of those devices have somewhat stagnated. Some of that simply due to they're all suffering the same problems that FPV has been a little bit, which is they're having to use off-the-shelf chipsets to drive the video, and latency isn't the biggest driving factor. But the Healing's based off the Pinecone chipset, which is made by Exumi, or I can never say, I don't know how you pronounce the company's name. So they're all based off someone else's chipset. It's not easy to do this stuff themselves, but having access... It's interesting. There's a lot of people doing a lot of really amazing work in the background, which I don't want to go into too much about how a lot of these systems have been working with the FPV and the low latency. And the one thing that's come to head very quickly is no one who makes chipsets wants to talk to you. Unless you're a mobile phone manufacturer who is willing to buy 10 million units or whatever, they have no interest in even discussing any form of deal. And whilst you can get some of these chipsets on the black market or the open market, it's the LTE baseband that is the core piece of technology, and that is very, very closed doors. They don't give access to it. They don't just open it up. There's no SDK. They just go, there you go, have a play with it. It is all very murky, that side of these SoCs. And there's a lot of chipsets out there that have CDMA, LTE support, but they don't let you tinker with it like we would need to be able to drive FPV style devices. If you're doing off the shelf wireless modem for cellular devices, fine.
Yeah.
And a lot of this has been driven by the digging into DJI, and there's some really cool stuff that's been found, and there's some, hopefully, if what we think has happened with this walk snail, because it all ties into this, we may have actually worked out whose chipset it is, but we don't want to say it yet until we don't want to give the game away is the thing, because once we do that, it might complicate things. But it is interesting that there's a lot of hardware out there that can do this, but they won't talk to you. And people have been, if you take OpenHD, OpenHD is having to leverage Wi-Fi standard to do what it does, and it's basically hit a brick wall. The brick wall is the Wi-Fi standard isn't good enough. There's a reason no one is using it. If we look at all of these devices, they're all using LTE. Yearlink, we know DJI are using LTE based loosely, but it's the core LTE SDR. The likelihood is Walk Snail are. The likelihood is anyone else's. It's all using LTE. And there has been sort of discussions on, can we get access to some of these chipsets for things like OpenHD? And these companies they're not even interested in discussing it.
Yeah, but that's been like that. If you try to get the software development kit for an umbrella image processor, it's exactly the same thing. It's barely impossible. They ask you just to start talking with them. They ask you 1 million units in 12 months just to start the conversation, and that's absolutely impossible.
And I can see this being a heavily limiting factor for the RC drone industry moving forward, because unless a manufacturer is willing to open up and do something,
come on, I have a bridge to sell you, Ian.
Well, it's numbers, Louis. If we look at who has driven, digital FPV was driven by DJI. They showed everyone it could be done at a good level. There was no one before DJI who made it work really. Okay, we had who was it? Connect.
Yeah.
And they tried it, but DJI showed it could be done.
And all those crazy expensive HDMI transmitters for up to 1 kilometer that weigh a ton and cost a better half of one arm and the other.
Yeah, and then you got HD0, and look, HD0 wouldn't exist without the man who is Carl, because he is the ASIC designer. It's a bit like a master craftsman who makes violins. He is the man who behind it, and without him, that system doesn't exist. It's not. There is a team of people that do a lot of stuff, but Carl laid the foundations. Carl did all of that, and it's almost like a one-man show, HD0. And without a boatload of money, without a man like him behind it, it wouldn't exist. And I just don't know where other companies are going to step into this. And it could explain why we haven't seen Orca. Bruce, they spoke what year? How long have they been talking about digital? 2 years?
Quite a long time.
And
they got a nice glass case though.
Yeah.
What's going on now with that Free Sky new radio that has the
that's HD0.
The HD0 on board.
Yep, they're using HD0, so they're not openly admitting it, but that's what they're using. But if this new chip, in the ideal world, we'll have a new chipset. If we look at digital FPV, so we have DJI, we have Autel have their own system, which is based. They've just switched chipset supplier because that's why there was all. That's
why you have a V2 and a V1.
Yeah. And I'm trying to remember who they switched to. I've completely forgot the name of who they switched to. I did know. And then you've got everyone else, but we have like 4 or 5 systems. But that's it.
Can we convince Autel to go open source? Because this software stack's the problem. They've got the good hardware. If we go open source with the software, the community gets involved, then we get access to all that fancy video system. The world will be a better place.
Yeah. I believe we are not. The
Autel isn't that good. It was okay on a camera drone. But what I noticed in the Autel is it was highly variable latency from one moment to the next, and unexpectedly variable. What I've always noticed with DJI is, and I don't mean the FPV system, I mean the camera drones, the latency only really becomes apparent at range and when the signal starts to degrade. There were periods where I was flying the Nano Plus probably 40, 50 meters away from me, and I could feel the latency shifting. 1 second, I'd move the stick, and the drone would move absolutely instantly. And next minute, I'd move the stick, and it's like, whoa.
You have a setting for that on the menu. You want if you want to go quality or whatever.
But that was, at 50 meters, Louis, that's highly variable. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. Come on. Yeah. It's the same with the Pro, with the Big Brother.
Yeah.
But not at 50 meters.
No.
At range.
And then you got Skydio using Wi-Fi. And Parrot using Wi-Fi as well. They're all Wi-Fi. They're using Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Or LTE if you put the 4G card.
Yeah.
You put the 4G card on the drone.
Have they sold any of them? Do we know?
What's that?
I believe the
mantis-looking thing.
Yeah,
because AI.
The Jazzle.
And
I was talking to someone about them today. Actually,
and one thing important from Parrot this past week was the release of the ground control station as an open source.
Yeah,
I can see some development on that. That combined with their air side stack, where you can have your own apps running on the drone. That might bring something to the playing field.
And can you access the simulator, or is that only on their GCS, on their version?
No, they have everything. So they have SDKs for the air control, so the code that can run on the drone, and open source the entire GCS. That is
they've got quite a tidy little they've got quite a tidy little simulator, haven't they? I mean that
oh god help. Their simulator, come on, it's based on Unreal Engine. It's a pain in the butt to install because it has very strict requirements. But it works so fantastically well that you go crazy.
Oh, not so much. And someone's mentioned Types mentioned the disco. That's one of my biggest regrets. I have many regrets. Is not getting hold of one of those when they sold them off cheap in England. When they got sold, who was it? Curry's or someone had them, didn't they? And they dumped them for no money at all. I wish I had one of those. That was a great thing. Sort of consigned to history now, isn't it? Not many people will know about those. That was not even 5 years ago, is it, when those were a thing? I don't know. No. But people are finding we're a tremendously long way. I've just noticed we've gone over the hour. Blast! I've been trying not to do that. Blast! Damn and blast! What are the stories that we've seen this week that have caught people's eyes?
Did you see Brendan's quote tweet about the Walmart delivery drones, all line of sight? And because he's claiming Walmart are claiming 4 million people can be delivered to now by their drones from 34 sites, which means like line of sight, no. And I'm wondering, we've just seen Teal doing this drone swarm. Did they have a waiver? Are Walmart really operating within the provisions of their line of sight drone delivery? Are the rules actually being followed, or are people just aware the FAA is really busy doing something else and we can just do it whatever the hell we like? They're chasing falling Red Bull planes and things. They don't care about us. So we'll just carry on and do our stuff. And maybe no one will notice, because remember, what our friend from America has found out about the way that people just ignore the rules. If you've got the right credentials, you can ignore all the rules and then no one does anything about it.
Well, it's funny you should mention that. As Jonathan been speaking to you, it's funny you should mention that. There are certain people that are just filling in most of the paperwork, but not all of the paperwork. And then when they're found out, they're given a waiver on top of a waiver to say, oh, I better get on with it then. That is basically what's happening when they're called out. And we need to do a story about that. Jetson type, we'll say about the Jetson video. Did you see that little teaser that they had of the guy commuting home in the Jetson? And he comes through goes through a valley, and he goes between a set of tall trees, then over a set of power lines, and then climbs up to his house. I mean, it was a very daring flight, shall I say. Yeah, that was very good.
A very edge case situation, because most places microlights are not allowed to be flying over built up areas. Therefore, you couldn't do it in any kind of suburban environment.
It was a standalone house. It was standalone in some woods. But still, I wouldn't be flying that thing along a set of power.
If you're that far out, has it got the range to reach anywhere you would be working? You couldn't commute if it only does a few miles.
Oh, yes, that's right. As long as it's a bit like the Amazon deliveries, isn't it? As long as you live within BV loss.
Why is Bruce concerned? I think the transport drones, whatever you want to call them, are a perfect fix for the current restriction and work at home thing. You can pick up your drone and fly from the living room to your room to the kitchen. You can go by drone instead of walking. Yeah. Come on.
Exactly. And if Amazon's experiences are anything to go by, you can set fire to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that Walmart thing and the VLOS thing, I have no idea how that works if they're delivering to a garden, because immediately you're not in VLOS, are you?
Well, they must just drop it down, just like drop it on a rope like the wing does, maybe, so they can always just see it over the hedge and the fence and the trees, you know. It's trebuchet range. Don't waste your money on drones.
Well, it's a boy on a bike carrying 100 kilos of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, but you've seen how accurate that Ukrainian artillery is when you got a drone spotting. So trebuchet, it'd be just as accurate if you had a digital background, digital management on it. Then just have a parachute opens at the last minute, and it's like no worry about drones.
I see the renders. I see the venture capital pitches for enhanced trebuchets, digital.
Actually, I wonder what are the regulations aviation wise about trebuchets? Do you need any kind of licensing or remote ID on an object flung by a trebuchet? Because it's really just the delivery itself. There's nothing else attached to it.
You have to go to the king or the queen, I think.
Well, I think there certainly must be rules in the world for not lobbing big, heavy things at things. There must be we must be moving in a different realm of don't chuck heavy things. There must be.
But it might be the simplest way to avoid all this regulation, remote ID, registration. Just throw it. I mean, courier drivers do that already. They just, if there's a fence, they just hip it over.
And put the parachute on it so it can land safely.
I think airbags would be better, because parachutes, there's regulations about parachutes, aren't there? But I don't think there's regulations about airbags.
That's a copyright issue on NASA, because they already threw something from here to Mars with airbags.
Yes.
Oh, and did we watch the Boeing Spaceliner thingy, the Boeing thing to this ISS and then back again? Wasn't it fantastic? It works, except the thrusters didn't work, but that was a minor point.
No, I finally caught up with that Netflix documentary about the 737 MAX. I know I'm the last person to the party, but oh my hat. If they're allowed to get away with that, I also see AOPA jumping up and down in America, jumping up and down about Canadian proposals for ADS-B. And just how long is the world going to stop that organization? Or how long are we going to allow that organization to stop modern skies in the future just because they want to keep their 1950 Cessnas flying?
What are they demanding that we have radios in planes now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but no rad is still a thing. No rad's still a thing. You still fly no rad in Class G in New Zealand. I don't know if you can elsewhere.
Next thing is a PTT button on each drone, so you can just press the button and call home on the drone instead of
just to have a little repeater and make aviation calls as you transit. I mean, that's not that difficult, is it? One could do that. We certainly listen out on the airband when flying, as I know Bruce does. And I could transmit if I'm suitably licensed. But,
so am I, but I'm not allowed. I'm suitably licensed, but CAA said, no, you're not allowed to. We don't like you. You can't.
Why not?
Because the CAA were a bunch of idiots a while back. They've got better now. If I reapplied, I'm sure they'd say, yes, you can. But at the time, they said, no, you may not, even though I've got the RTOC and all the qualifications needed.
But you'd be a bit of an edge case because you're on an airfield as well, aren't you? So then you start being a flight information service almost, I suppose.
Yeah, if you warn someone it's not safe to land, and therefore save a life. Are you breaking the rules by doing so, by providing flight advice? I mean,
yes,
bad,
because you're not suitably qualified. Yeah, you would be.
Exactly.
As ridiculous as it is.
And they're always looking for someone to blame. Have you noticed that the deaths in mad aviation continues? That thing in Nepal, it was that helicopter. I don't think anyone died in the helicopter that I put that tweet about. But planes are still falling from the sky with monotonous regularity.
Very much. We've had lots here.
ADSB would fix that.
Either they fall from the sky, or the pilots give up on the planes and leave the plane perfectly flying and go home by parachute.
Let's go home.
Just open the door and get out. I give up. I give up. Yeah, no, it is a nonsense, and AOPA have got to start realizing that the sky is going to change. There will be autonomous deliveries of size. There will be lots more service.
On a lighter note, who has seen the new aviation security video of Top Gun Maverick?
Not seen that one yet.
Haven't
No,
seen
it's not
it,
released here yet. It's not released here yet. It's only a few northern hemisphere.
Did you see China's very upset because at the last minute they changed they put the Taiwanese flag back on his jacket because Tencent pulled out of funding. So when they edited the movie, they put the Taiwanese flag back on his jacket because they took it off because the Chinese funding people said, we don't want any recognition of Taiwan. But then when they pulled out, they stuck it back in final edit. So the Chinese have said, we'll watch pirated copies. We're not going to watch this. But the pirated copy will still have the Taiwanese flag on it.
Brandon's talking about spray and mapping weeds, and will only spray what is mapped as a weed. Yeah, but a lot of those John Deere autonomous drone sprayer, is that a flying
If it's
one?
John Deere, you'll never be able to fix it yourself.
No, because the small robot company has a great one that zaps weeds with basically a spark plug with a spark, but it it's a pretty clever way of doing it. So no chemicals involved at all. We've just had in fact, it's still on. If you're in the Petermaritzburg area, the Royal Show, the 200 and whatever, it's been going since 1906. I thought this year I would see at least one, if not two, crop spraying drones, because I see one all the time doing work around here on the back of someone's pickup. And I thought I would see something, not John Deere, but some other ground-based robots. And I haven't seen any big agricultural show. So it just sort of points, it's not all there quite yet.
Why haven't Yamaha done it? I mean, they got that helicopter. That was their big claim to fame, that Yamaha crop spraying model helicopter. Where's their drones? Why haven't they moved into that?
Because they don't sell that. They rent the helicopter. That's the biggest difference. And apparently,
but still, drones must be impinging on that particular craft entering its market. So you think they would be upping their ante and fighting back with drones that they leased you?
And DJI sells like crazy their Agras models in China.
Yes. And here they sell loads here.
But that aero drone, that has a flamethrower for only 150 New Zealand dollars. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Thank goodness that engineer left. Well, the interesting thing about I've forgotten the name of the robot dog. A company made a big mistake.
The Sony Aivo?
No, a slightly bigger one, but they made a big mistake. Kevin Finisterre got it
Boston Dynamics.
The Boston Dynamics.
No, the Trosson Robotics sell one, a Chinese one that's remade, and Trosson Robotics said, what's his name? Kevin said, I'd like to buy one. What's the price? And he found it cheaper on Alibaba, and then there was all sorts of arguments about that. And the trouble is, you don't want to annoy at / because he starts looking, and he discovers, because I've been looking at Trosson Robotics just because I want bigger rovers for teaching rather than Lego robots, because you get so much value out of a Lego robot. Let's have something bigger. So I found them in passing, and I thought, wow, this is all very slick. It all looks very, very familiar. And in a Twitter exchange, I said to Kevin, it reminds me very much of 3DR DJI early days. And guess what he's discovered? Yes, one of the former DJI engineers did leave DJI, and he did start the robotics company that's making the walking dog and other rovers in China with funding, and it is very, very much like the DJI model all again. It's just appearing now on our
But
streets. So
And BBC should claim prior art with K9 from Doctor Who.
yes, absolutely.
But Gary, if you need a rover for teaching purposes, I can give you a good suggestion. Do you have any golf courses around you?
Yes.
Go and ask them to sell you one of the old buggies.
Oof, that would be fun. I could have my autonomous car then, couldn't it? But then, how do you interface with them, or what's underneath the hood in those things?
Come on, you're on the robotics class, so start.
Yes.
And it's electric, so it's just relays and whatever you want.
You just get those little dog collars for training dogs, and they give them a shock, put them on the kids, and have the kids sitting in the cart, and one shot for left, two shots for right.
That's a good way of doing it.
Use the available resources, Gary.
Yeah, it's a very good way of doing it. A lot of people use wheelchairs, don't they? That's the other thing that they use,
especially paraplegics.
Yeah, yeah. But I thought it was very interesting that that particular company that make a robot dog that I've completely forgotten the name of is basically DJI alumni making their way up, and all is very similar, the way in which it's marketed and the hype generated around it. And Kevin is not the person to hack off.
Have you seen the ad for that new that telescope you can put on your smartphone and it takes women's clothes off in the supermarket? That's brilliant.
You can get all the quality ads, don't we? All the quality ads.
It is surprising. Sorry, I was going to say, it isn't surprising we've seen, DJI lose a lot of people. They spend 2-3 years moving through. And DJI have been somewhat of a sort of, they come out of university into DJI. It's almost been the work experience and incubating company. So you're probably going to see a lot of people move on from DJI and develop some pretty big.
Be very, very impressive. Yeah.
It's they're definitely set up as a company that pushes the boundaries on of the people who've worked there, but they don't stay too long. It's normally 2 years. 2 years, people are gone.
But Ian, what could they learn from DJI except perhaps which suppliers and some confidential information about certain chips? What cannot they learn if they go to PX4 or ArduPilot or Betaflight to learn about controlling a drone?
That's just code. If drones were about code, DJI wouldn't necessarily be the biggest, because actually that's the bit they're the worst at. If we actually look at software, it's software that's let DJI. Their hardware is second to none from a industrial design point of view, from a building. What you learn from DJI is how to put a product on the market.
Systems integration and marketing.
Anyone can make a product. It doesn't mean it will ever be a success. But if you look at DJI, how many products haven't been a success? It's not many, is it? So what you can learn at DJI is how to take an idea and move that through to an end result, and that's valuable info.
Speaking of which, have you heard any more about the Ronin 4Z or whatever it was?
No, it's out, but
it seems to have died. Is it released? Is it?
Yeah, it is out. You can get it, but it's DJI is somewhat of an Apple in that sense. They make a product, they deliver it to market, it sells very well. I can well understand why a lot of people would want to work there to see how to do it. I can't think of many Chinese companies who are as globally successful as DJI. If we think about this, how many heritage Chinese companies, you've got Exumi or whatever they are. Volvo.
They're Chinese now, aren't they?
Yeah, but from the
Xiaomi,
Huawei, but but they're the only two.
Banggood.
But that's sales, isn't it?
It's my favorite.
Yeah, Banggood. But yeah, DJI are very good at delivering an end product.
I know something I did want to share. I'll put in here as well as we go in. Did we see First of its kind prosecution in Ireland for illegal use of drone with potential for public safety risk. And there is the very shot that was part of the prosecution. The IAA successfully brought that.
What were they flying? An Agris?
Let's see if it tells in this. I can't remember. It doesn't really what it matters. But the interesting thing is, of course, this is under EASA rules. So is this the first prosecution under the EASA rules? I wonder. Yeah. So they got them for that. The safety of public is our priority. The onus on those who operate drones to do so safely and within the scope of the law, which in this case is EU-wide and enforced since the beginning of last year. Nobody
so
was
it must have been
injured
greater
in this
than
incident.
250. Over 250 grams. Because, I mean, like a manned aircraft never fallen on a crowd of people and killed them, has it?
Never. No, never. Never done that at Farnborough. Never.
Dare you suggest such a thing, Bruce?
Yeah. No,
That manned aircraft could be dangerous. That's a shocking, scandalous.
Couldn't be with all the hoops they have to jump through and all the paperwork, because of course an aircraft doesn't fly unless the paperwork exceeds the all-up weight of the aircraft.
And the corporate culture, Boeing.
Yeah, that was terrible. Oh, is the Reno? Oh gosh, has something gone through the crowd at Reno?
No, that was ages ago. Remember that P-51 smacked into the crowd, completely destroyed itself. There was the guy. I reckon he passed out with a G's or something.
One? Was that a very steep end to it?
Yeah, I think just smack. There was a grandstand, and it sort of hit the grandstand, and boom, a lot of people died. But I guess at a race event, you take the risk into account. But if you're walking down the street in a suburban neighbourhood and something crashes into you, that's a different story.
What happened in Yemen? Was it last week or the week before? They shot one down. That's killed 3 people, didn't it? In a street in Yemen. Oh, elevator shouldn't have failed. Oh dear me! Runaway elevator. That's terrible. Yeah, no, it's a weird old world. Can you tell I'm running out of things to say? So with that,
we can just look at the top of Ian's head for the next 30 minutes. Look at that, eh? Ooh.
No, it's too bright. I've had to. I've dimmed down the screen there because I can't possibly see it. What are you building, Ian? What are you breaking?
I'm fighting.
Yeah, exactly. What are you breaking?
Well, I'm fighting a Beta FPV Whoop, the same one that Bruce has got, which flies. Well, to say it flies like a bag of nails is an understatement. It's the worst.
Mine had the tiny motors too. The tiny motors
I've upgraded the
catch on
motors now,
fire.
Bruce, because I burnt one out, obviously. And do you know what? I'll be honest, it still flies no better. It's got a lot more power.
Really?
Don't get me wrong. It's got like
high-powered performance.
It's now got, Bruce, like 3 times the power that it had before, right? However, it still shakes like it's on a vibration table. And I just
most of the whoops I've had, all the whoops I've had except this one, have had really bad jello, and they're very shaky. This is brilliant. This is the best whoop I've ever had.
Is that the Insta360 on top?
Like that. It'll sit there. It's like
the beta, the 4K.
Yeah.
That's the little Schmo 4K 30 gram, bare bones one. But this is the what is it? The Cinelog 35 HD from Gep RC. I love their quads. All their quads are really good. I'm so impressed with all the Gep RC stuff.
I do hear good reports. This thing, the worst thing is it just shakes. So you sit there and you watch it, listen to it, and you can hear the motors twitching. It's not, though, like high PID twitching. When you got proper high PID, it's a rhythmic vibration. This isn't. It's like, and it comes and it goes, and it's
like a loose wire, eh?
Yeah, it even does it. If you arm the motors on the ground and just leave it sit there, not in acro, in horizon or normal mode, the motors sit there pulsing. And you're like, there's something on the gyro. I think it's the flight controller. I'm beginning to get to the conclusion there's something off on the board. That's the only thing it can be. Because I've had to take the PIDs down to one of the lowest levels I've had on any aircraft. And it's fine, but then the second you put it into any form of disturbance or weather, it just doesn't push back. It can't handle it. And so I'm coming to the conclusion it's the flight controller.
Oh, come on, Ian.
Shock horror from Beta FPV.
Come on. You're a pilot or one of those guys that can only fly with GPS assisted?
No, I fly it in acro mode, but it still flies like a heap of junk. I'm trying to. You can't take any footage off it because it's just vibrating. That's the
Come on.
problem.
Yeah.
That's
They do.
That's why you have that nice piece of furniture called the Inspire 2, right? If you want
Yeah,
to
mounted on that.
I want to be able to see where I'm going. It jitters that bad. You can't actually see out the bloody camera.
Are you running ELRS on it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've converted it to Express LRS. So I've
Yeah,
converted it to Express LRS. But it's this. It's. I don't understand why the twitch.
It'll be HD0 causing that.
Well, yes, it is digital. The only thing is, it's probably underweight now.
Yes, it's probably too light, and then you turn on a little twitch because it got quite aggressive props. What props are you running?
These are the new. I've got because I've upgraded the motors. I've gone down to the 3 blades now from the 5s because we've now got the 1404s. It's like 3 to 4 times more powerful. You know, when you had the little motors, it just didn't do anything.
Screamed its guts out, and it only just flew. Yeah.
Now it's more like a 5-inch. It's got power now.
What battery are you running?
4S.
What size?
Million.
Okay.
450.
Yeah. Yeah, and how you know they're beautiful, like those little PWM receivers with separate channel outputs.
Yeah,
I've just been reviewing those, having a look at them. They work really well. But why do they make channel 5? It's a binary channel. You can only have off or on. What are you going to use that for, apart from perhaps retracts? Why didn't they make it one of the proportional channels, even if it was like, so it's 128 position or something? Because at least you could use it for flaps or something, or some other proportional control. But just having, hopefully they'll remap that actually.
Yeah. It's frustrating because I'm trying to use it to finish the review of the Whoop kit, but I can see I've got 2 days left, and all of the footage I've got is frankly garbage because of the impact of the quad, if you know what I mean. I'm just so if something doesn't change on this tomorrow, I'm going to end up having to put the camera in a 5-inch just to be able to get some nice footage.
Have you tried using the stabilization, that what do they call it, that public domain stabilization thing? I can't remember.
The problem is, with that much jitter on the HD, the HD0, it doesn't look as good as DJI in many ways. It's a different kind of compression.
Yeah.
It's not compression, but it is.
It's constant quality.
Yeah. And what I've noticed is it looks quite bad under vibration situations. It just mushes to hell, basically.
Yeah.
So what so tomorrow I've got 2 days left. The review is finished, but the footage is frankly garbage. It is utter
just
garbage.
Do some 3D renderings. Fake it, mate. That's what we do in the drone industry. If you can't make it, fake it, and then ask for some venture capital.
So if I can't, I completely rebuilt this today. I've took it for a couple of flights, and I was like hoping, when you sort of think, I've rebuilt it, I've redone everything, new motors, and I've taken away, gone, it's not really any better. It's still bad. I've completely
got another flight controller you can stick in it.
No, that's what I was just doing. I was seeing if I could get that into it.
If I was you, I'd change the flight controller, use some different ESCs. You've got new motors, and see if you can find another frame.
That'll solve all of the problems.
Triggers broom.
I have actually got.
Here we go. It's great. You can make him do anything, can't you? You just put it.
Look at that chair.
But I never did it. But what is this? This is the Pavo 30, but that's bigger props, which I haven't got. It's another Beta FPV one, which I never used. It's probably just as bad as the first one. It's
bigger is better though. For these little things, bigger is better. I've got the Holy Bro, which is the same size as the Beta FPV with the 1404 motors, whatever it is, and it's also really, really noisy, and it doesn't feel pleasant to fly around because of the noise, and it isn't stable. But this thing is just like flying a 5-inch quad. It is just so super, super stable. I don't have to stabilize my footage off that camera. I don't bother with the FPV stabilization. It's raw, and it's just so silky smooth. It's brilliant.
I can see me mounting it into a 5-inch tomorrow just to get some nice, flat, solid footage without a problem. Because
on that camera, you can have the stabilization on.
Yeah,
So-
but I don't bother. It doesn't add anything. That frame flies so smooth. I run a lot of Expo, and when I take my pills, it's just like butter. It's absolutely brilliant. And the footage I put up where I was flying in the park under the trees and things, there was no stabilization on that.
No.
You
I'm
wanna
at
avoid
that
it,
stage.
yeah.
You know, when you have something that's annoying you so much, you want to get it solved, and that's where I'm
Yes,
at with
yes.
this now. And
Divorce, isn't it? That's what you use, divorce.
I've wasted so much time on this the last 24 hours. It is insane. I've had some other stuff come in today. I've had some new some new batteries. I wrecked 5 batteries on the bench in the last month. I have a habit of, I have bench testing batteries, but when you're in the middle of doing something and then they're flat, you'll then inevitably go and grab a good pack and then flatten that to 2 volt and wreck that as well on the bench. And part of this is when I've been doing a lot of the digital stuff is actually really power hungry. So when you're playing with it on the bench, it's not drawing 100 milliamp, it's drawing 1.5 amp.
Wow.
What happened to your bench supply?
Well, do you know what? For here, I probably need a dedicated bench supply for testing. Actually, it's
Toolkit RC make a lovely little tiny one. The display's
Do
a bit
they?
small, but it's really small. And so it's got heaps of watts. It's actually really, really good. I have it on my bench, and it is when I want to use a battery. Otherwise, I will tend to use that little supply instead.
But something interesting, I ordered 2 lipos from 2 different manufacturers today, and I don't know if you'll see that on camera. These are both the same capacity, okay? But can you see
Yellow ones are always bigger, though. Yellow ones are always
Yes,
bigger.
That's Hobby King valuing there, isn't it? Are you sure?
Look at the size difference between those packs. There is a
It's
substantial.
one of the pizza edition.
They are, because that's all I could get in the UK. So one of
they're
them
not that
is
good.
CNL
Pizza edition are crap.
HLs. And then these is the new ones in the UK. They're called the FPV battery, and they're a UK supplier who are rebranding something. They're about £2 cheaper than all of the others, but they say they're as good as others. So
Of course they say. Well, they're not going to say, we make this new battery and it's really crap,
And
but
it's
buy it
worse.
anyway.
It's worse than all the rest. Yeah, here's our
fair,
new battery. It's rubbish.
It's on par in size with the Tattoo Fun Fly, which is a good pack.
I hate the Tattoo batteries. I've never had any luck with Tattoo. Here's one
And
here.
CNHL blacks. Everyone says these are very good battery. The CHNL blacks.
They're okay. They're not the best, but value-wise, they're very good.
They're very good. But this is on par size with that. But I don't know why the pizza edition is so big.
Too much salami.
Pizza. Yeah.
Pizza.
Olives.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Look, we're definitely ranting. We've got
Ranting now.
half an hour. We've gone half an hour over the time. So, with that, any more, gentlemen? Going once, going twice.
Haven't we done enough?
Yeah, you've done enough already. Exactly. Wherever you might be in the world, thank you very much for joining us. Look after yourselves. We'll see you again next week, 2100 GMT. Cheers for now. Take care, everybody.